the connection between quality, rework, and safety, and expanding on why and how the construction safety professionals can influence other construction risks, which most often have large financial exposure than craft or larger financial exposure than craft industry. And this is being brought to you by two individuals who I will announce who are today's keynote speakers. One who is Brian Clark, who is the managing partner for GEW LLC. And a little bit about Brian is that Brian is a Central Washington University graduate in occupational safety and health. Brian has had a vast amount of experience throughout his career working for Continental Insurance, also a corporate safety director for 17 years for Hoffman Construction in the Portland, Oregon area, after which Brian became a managing member of GEW LLC, a safety consulting company specializing in the construction industry. And Clark also founded Quality Safety Times, which is a subscription-based service to the construction industry, providing trade-specific and quality topics for craft continuing education through our weekly safety and quality meetings. Brian was also awarded Safety Professional of the Year back in the early 2000s for the ASSC Columbia Willamette chapter, and of course is actively involved in the American Society of Safety Engineers, rather. We also have Kimberly Gamble, or Kim Gamble, who is the Senior Safety Consultant for GEW LLC, and Kim has 30 years of experience in construction, safety, and risk management, and is an active with American Society of Safety Professionals in the Oregon Columbia Willamette chapter. And she is here with us today to share her knowledges of experience and also all of her input today with regard to the subject matter. We are so thankful, Brian and Kim, to have you joining us today. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I will go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Well, good morning. Appreciate everybody this morning. Kim's going to share screen with the PowerPoint here in a second.
Doesn't look like I have the authority. Do I have the authority, Rhett, to do that? I don't see that in my
Yes,
screen.
you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. Got it. Thank you so much.
So as Kim boots this up, some of you know, some of you don't know, I started off my career in insurance. And in the insurance world, excuse me, we're more concerned about losses than we are about compliance. So my growth and background in the last 30 plus years, whatever, has been more of an approach. There you go. Thanks, Kim. Of loss prevention than it has been compliance. And just as an overall general statement, you're going to hear a lot of references today about the financial impacts and looking at things from a little bit different perspective. We can never forget, obviously, the whole purpose of the Construction Safety Summit and other organizations is to make sure people are sent home safe. But when we look at losses from a financial standpoint, we really need to prioritize where we're spending our time. And I categorize losses in two types of losses. The first loss is humanitarian. That's the part that hits you right here. If you've ever been on a project with a fatality or a catastrophic type event, you understand that. And it's something you'll never forget in your life. If you look at losses from a financial standpoint, I will discuss with you today that employee injuries is not necessarily the top of the list. Thus, the first bullet is, should we be calling ourselves safety directors, managers, whatever, or should we really be looking at losses and call ourselves loss prevention or loss control? So just a little quick agenda, we'll get into this a little bit more in a second. I'm going to talk a lot about what the leading losses are right now in the construction industry from a financial standpoint, the parallels between safety or injury prevention and quality control, a little bit about CII and AIA. I'm going to give you some examples of worksheet and some recommendations to, especially if you're in negotiated work. Kim, can you hit the next slide?
Yeah, I need to stop sharing for a minute because my screens are duplicating, and so I can't see the meeting and the screen. So just give me a quick second here. I'm sorry, Brian, I'm having some computer issues with my graphics driver.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Hang on.
Don't
You-
want the, I might just have to do it this way. I apologize.
Hey, check your inbox. Can you do the PowerPoint?
Are you talking to me?
Yes. I just sent you the PowerPoint digitally.
Yeah, it's taken over. I apologize for this. I miss having an IT department. I have been
Okay.
messing with
So
my
did
computer
you
graphics driver for some time.
did you get
Try this again.
No worries.
did
Okay.
you get it?
Wait. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Yes.
What are you seeing? The full screen?
Yes.
It's-
The intro slide.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay. Did it work?
Perfect.
Okay, so
Okay.
there's the slide I just ran with. There we go. So you guys can read the bullets faster than I can talk to them, but we in the safety world, injury prevention world, we already have these processes down. We'll get into what I mean in a minute. And we have a great opportunity to work with the quality control people, especially on the financial side and the cost. And we'll get into that in quite a bit in a minute. If you really want to talk about why this is important, 15 years ago, research really was not available on the cost of rework. Okay. Now, if somebody's bored right now and want to have a split screen at home, go type in commercial construction rework cost. And you're going to find all kinds of articles. There's a bunch of them listed on our webpage, but there's a whole bunch of articles out there that talk about the impact of financial impact of rework. And then depending on what author you want to listen to or what research you want to listen to, it can range from anywhere from 4 to 30% of the project cost. So if you think about that for a second, we've done a lot of work in the past with Intel. A fab usually runs a fab and a CUB, what's the central utility building, usually runs around $1 billion. Okay. So if you take a really low number of that 4 to 30% financial impact for rework based on research, this isn't stuff I've done or Kim's done. This is research. You need to look it up. If you take a low number, let's say 10%. 10% of $1 billion is $100 million. So when you start looking at the numbers that are involved with rework, it's staggering, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of that in a few minutes. As a side note, the third reason for subcontractor default is quality control. The number one reason is financial. The number two reason is not having enough staff, enough labor. But the number three reason for subcontractor default is quality control. Okay, next slide, Kim. This is just a simple graphic showing the relationships between safety, risk management, and loss prevention. We typically in the safety world deal more with the employees and a little bit of public, and of course a lot of subcontractor oversight. Even if you're a subcontractor, you typically have subcontractors. If you're a mechanical sub, you usually hire a concrete sub to do the concrete, et cetera, et cetera. The risk management traditionally is more concentrated on the financial exposures and the insurance side, although there's a lot of crossover depending on who you ask. And then loss prevention, a term I prefer, is one where you look at all losses. Okay, next slide. So, okay, Kim, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. So, when I was working for my previous employer, a Northwest-based commercial general contractor, I actually was pretty lucky in that not only did I have the opportunity to manage our employee safety and health program, but I oversaw our claims management for a lot of years. So yeah, I saw all the loss runs, not only for our employee injuries, but for our auto accidents, our third-party overaction claims, any wrongful dismissal, harassment. I actually was in charge of our EEO, HR harassment claims for a while. And I also would at least get the initial claim for any construction defect claims. And I learned early on that barring any catastrophic event related to an employee, our big loss drivers, and I think many of you know, are either the third-party overaction claims or the construction defect claims, are something when the building isn't built the way the owner wants it, and they've got to go in and fix it. And those claims come years later. So those are where our real big loss drivers are. But many people early on 20, 30 years ago, we didn't necessarily have people managing that process. Today, we've caught up and we have a lot of people managing those processes. I want to switch gears here for a minute, though, and talk about these trends in the workforce. I think many of you have probably seen this. You're aware of this. You're aware of the fact that right now, well, as of 2020, per this graph from the U.S. Department of Bureau labor statistics, almost 25% of the construction workforce was 55 and over. Well, that was 2020. That was 5 years ago. The average retirement age for a construction worker is 61. So if we believe this graph, if we have not done a good job of recruiting people coming in behind them, we've lost 25% of our workforce. And that is our workforce that is the most knowledgeable. And we know that that affects safety, that affects quality, that affects everything on the work site. The AGC 2025 survey, of course, they surveyed this late 2024. I know we've had some changes. Their concerns was worker quality, worker supply, and worker education. But what was really striking to me when I was looking at this survey is that 75% of the firms who responded viewed inexperienced workers as their leading safety and health challenge. Well, not only is that a leading safety and health challenge, but if we have inexperienced workers, that's going to affect schedule and it's going to affect quality. And we know that safety is tied to quality and schedule. I don't know how many of you have seen this, since I can't see people's faces. I typically like to know how many people have seen this, but I like using the Ansbro Safety Culture Spectrum as kind of a template of where we're at with our comprehensive programs that can be informed by our employee workplace culture. So this, if you familiar with this Ansbro Safety Culture Spectrum, you can use this when you're trying to evaluate where you are with respect in the workplace or where you are with your quality management program. So just a little extra I like to throw into there to this presentation. But most importantly, I really believe that as safety professionals, we're culture curators. And I know that we can have job sites where the culture is very different from maybe the organization's corporate culture. And that culture can be great, or that culture can be really toxic depending upon the leadership on the project. And as safety professionals, I believe we have a opportunity to proactively inform that culture. And when we have a toxic work environment, we know that we have an unsafe project. And we also probably are not getting employees' best work. So our quality is going to be affected. And we're going to potentially see more rework. And I think as safety professionals, we do a great job of helping our teams develop the work plan. But what catches us off guard is when they have to redo the work. And we're starting to see that some organizations are trying to identify when they've had an accident, was that work planned or was that work rework? And so there's an actual connection to rework and injuries at work. Brian, I'm going to hand it back to you.
So jumping into the quality control side, and just a little bit of clarification on the difference between construction defects and cost of rework. Construction defects is a claim under a covered peril for your insurance policy. So that does not address nor cover near the amount of costs that you have as a company when you have a rework problem. Okay, if you want to make an analogy, think of the hidden cost of employee injuries. Okay, so when you're looking at what is it, slide 10 here, gee, when was this? It was quite a few years ago when I was still at Hoffman. Zurich Insurance came to Hoffman and said, we need to have a formal quality control program. We, of course, had it. Kim, back up to the one. Are you and I off slides here? Yeah, there you go. Of course, we had quality control programs on different projects, but we didn't have like a corporate program. So myself and the CEO's brother was assigned to come up with a quality control corporate program. Next slide. And that was published. That article there was published in the ASSC Construction Professional or Safety Professional quite a few years ago. As a follow-up to that article, this topic, construction and construction safety professionals and quality control, I also had an article published this last April in Professional Safety. So the parallels between quality and safety, when Bill Drinkward and I were looking at it, go ahead and add the quality side, Ken, all of it. So when we were looking at, so what do we need to do to put together our quality control program, was why don't we just take the safety program and take out the word safety and put the word quality in. So if you look at this chart, and this is a stepchild of the article we wrote, we're basically the same processes. We have different content in injury prevention and quality control, but the processes are generally the same until it comes down to the bottom one, lessons learned. Okay, and we'll get back to that in just a second. So the next slide, those of us been around quite a while, especially those of us in the insurance industry, we always knew what this study came out. And these are 2 charts out of 4 from an article that was written by a number of professors showing the relationship between construction safety and quality performance. One of those people involved with this study was Dr. Sathi Rajendran out of Central Washington University. And basically what this shows, like I said a second ago, is something we already knew, those of us in the insurance world, and in the higher parts of the construction and safety, construction risk management side. We knew that there was a relationship between unsafe projects, high injury rates, and high costs of rework. This study actually came out and proved it. And I don't know if you can read it well enough, but across the bottom, I think these 2 are, one of them is recordable injury rates on the left, the other one is first aid recordables, and it's the correlation is of the a number of rework claims per $1 million. All 4 of these graphs, we couldn't put all 4 on the chart, you wouldn't be able to see them. All 4 of these graphs show the exact same linear relationship. The more injuries we have, the higher our cost of rework. It's quite simple. Okay, next slide. So rework. That's the definition of rework across the top. I just pulled it off of Google, off an insurance site. A more easier way to say that is not building it right the first time. Back to the research a little bit, the bottom line there shows some of the different larger, more notable authors on this subject. And if you just go with CII, Construction Industry Institute, they're looking at 12% of the project cost can be attributed to rework. If you look at the chart on the right, it is something I had a professor at Central Washington University put together for me. The cost of rework is going up every single year. And that ties directly back to what Kim was saying a minute ago about the concerns of contractors with a lack of knowledge of the people coming into the building trades. So if you think there's no way in God's green earth we could get a 20 or a 30% loss on a project, okay? So I'm gonna give you a short example. A year or so ago, whatever, we hired a new payroll manager. And we had a little procedure manual. And the procedure manual told exactly what to do. You know, this person gets per diem, this person gets travel, this person gets overtime, this person has salary, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was so detailed that I thought anybody could do it. The new payroll manager screwed it up so bad that the next day my office manager, my HR manager, and my payroll manager spent the entire day fixing it. I just had a 20% loss for that week. I had 3 of my office staff spend an entire day fixing one person's screw up because they didn't follow the manual that was provided to them with the details of what to do. Okay, so when you're looking at these numbers and you say there's no way we can get to 30%, okay, I can prove 20% because it's happened to me. Let's go down to 10%. Again, we're talking staggering numbers. The chart that Kim's got here, a little ahead of me there. So back, shucks, this was, well, 2023 is when I won this award. So I think we put this together in early 2000s or 1999 or whatever. And basically it came to a point where we got together with a couple of the safety people in the Portland area, and we actually put a spreadsheet together to track cost of accidents. We literally went out and we put together, and this is available on the website. Anybody can have it. It's for free. Just go to our website. It's qualitysafetytimes.com, and you'll see this as one of the drop downs where you can literally go in. It's a great opportunity for an apprentice or a new foreman or a new superintendent to show them the costs of accidents. And we'll get into that just a little bit more in depth in here in a second. But with this, you can start talking to people in the risk management world and in your accounting department and in the corner office about dollars, real dollars. And I'll talk to that a little bit in a minute. Okay. Next slide, Kim.
So I was fortunate to be working pretty closely with Brian not long after he developed that form, and I started using it where I worked, not only to educate our leadership on the direct and indirect costs of accidents. I'm sure it's something that all of us do, but I also started using this when I was doing leadership training with our foremen, and I would specifically use this chart where it talks about the loss value and the profit margin. And this is something you can do with your own foremen, your own superintendents, because sometimes we have those leaders that they don't know how much even minor losses cost. And so I like to show this to them and show that, a lot of GCs, our profit margins are down in the 3 to 5%. So if we have that $50,000 loss and a 3% profit margin on that project, this is the way I would relate it to them is $1.6 million of the work that they did on that project, they did just to cover this one loss. And sometimes I would actually put it into like, how many cubic yards of concrete do we need to pour to be able to bill $1.6 million? And it kind of really opened their eyes into just how much claims cost. So as Brian and I were working on this over the last year, we took that same form and we edited it so that people can use it to track rework. And you can, again, you can get it off the website. You can modify this to meet your needs, and you can track the cost of rework. And I think it's something that we're almost afraid to do because so often rework gets covered up on a project. It just, go fix it. And so we're losing the opportunity to learn from our mistakes if we're not actually, at the very least, having an after action review conversation and figuring out how much that cost us.
So Kim, can I jump in there?
Absolutely.
Can you back up one? Yeah. So a quick story that I think some people will get a kick out of. When those of you who know Sathe over at Central Washington University, he was actually an intern for me quite a few years ago. And as those of you who know him know, he's gets stuff done really, really well, really, really fast. So we were about 3 weeks into the intern, and it was like, he came to me and he said, okay, what do you have for me next? And I was like, you had all these projects done, and he did. So what I did is I took this form and I took all the injury first report of injury claims forms we had off a large OHSU project, Oregon Health Science University project. And I sent Sathy up, gave some notice to the subcontractors involved, and said, hey, this intern's going to come up. And what he's going to do is he's going to spend 15 minutes with your foreman, and we're going to track how many hours the crew or the foreman or the supervisors or the safety people for the subcontractors, et cetera, spent on this claim, on this injury. And again, it might be a $200 eye injury, but the hours were unbelievable, okay, that were spent in action review meetings or claims review meetings or in witness statements or whatever, okay? So Sathy went up and spent a couple weeks doing that, came back down, and we organized them by subcontractor. Okay, and this is one of those opportunities for people in the audience, if you want to talk to your C-suites about money, okay, about how safety, injury prevention, and quality control ties into your bottom line, like Kim was just talking about. I separated these all out by subcontractors, and I was in the copy room making copies. And ironically, one of the board of directors walked into the room. His name was Dick Silliman, and he was over all the estimating at Hoffman. Great guy, known him for 25 years, really an incredible, very brilliant man. And he looked at me and he said, hey, what's the safety guy doing with spreadsheets? So I told him, you ever hear of your elevator speech? This was my time and opportunity for an elevator speech. So in just a matter of a minute, I told Dick what I did, OHSU, our intern, tracking the numbers. And he was looking at a couple of them, and I looked at him and said, do you want to see Hoffman Structures losses? And he said, yeah. So I showed him the packet, 8 or 10 or whatever it was, number of injuries we had over a month or two with HSI, and the dollars that were spent, which is on the right-hand side column. And then on the left, you see in the slide right there, you see the losses. So if we're at a 3% profit margin, we have a $250,000 loss. We have $833,000 of work to do to make up for that number. And the board of director looked at me, Dick, and he said, I want a copy of all of this. And the take home here is he had no idea. He had no idea of the hidden costs in the accidents, and he was on the board of directors of Hoffman Corporation. Okay, so it's just like, oh, wow. But here's the funny story. So I took all the subcontractors, put them in the envelope with the first report of injury, this cost sheet, and I stapled my business card or clamped it to all the reports or all the incidents with the cost to each sub, and I sent it off to every sub, and I sent it off to the principal of each sub, like Dustin Harder Mechanical, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one of the people I sent it to was Kenny Carr at Carr Construction. They're a large steel erector. And it's really funny because his number 2 gentleman in the company, Curtis Anderson, called me up, and he said, hey, what's what how you doing, how's the family, all that kind of stuff. And he said, what is this? Kenny was asking me what it is. And I said, well, what does Kenny think it is? And the number 2 person at Carr Construction said the owner thinks it's a bill coming from the general contractor, the subcontractor, for how much it's costing us as a GC. And I said, well, what do you think it is, Curtis? And he says, I think it's an ass chewing. And we got a big laugh over it and whatnot. But the point is, here are 2 major corporations with corner seat people who had no idea about the hidden cost of accidents. Okay. Now, to a lot of people on this group right now, you're going to say, yeah, no kidding, we've been doing this for years. If you go to the next slide, what Kim's getting into, that rework slide, that is what we just redid. We redid it now for quality control. And the neat thing about this form is we used a whole bunch of superintendents to help us come up with this spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet is on our website if you want to take a look at it. And I would encourage you, take the spreadsheet, go out, give it to an internship, and just track it. Go out and give it to a foreman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
No, you're great. So one of the things that Brian and I really believe is that when you're developing a safety program, a lot of the structure really mirrors safety. How do you orientate your employees to what your quality expectations are? Do you have a quality control manual? Do you have checklists for checking your quality? Insurance, of course. Are you tracking your quality incident rates, your quality rework rates to know just how excellent is your work? Are you doing incident reviews or rework reviews so that you can learn, well, how did we make that mistake so we don't make that mistake again? And we do kind of believe that in quality we are probably not sharing our mistakes like we do in safety, and we think that's a missed opportunity. But the other thing we want to focus on is how do we train our workers, our superintendents, our foremen, and our trades and our craftspeople for safety. We train them for safety, and it is easier to train them for safety because we have all the regulatory environment and all the regulations. But I think oftentimes we expect, well, we know that most of the how you do the work for our craft workers is on the job training. So they are getting their training either from the best or the worst or the in the middle journey worker, and they may not always get the training they need to be able to think critically through their work unless, again, we are sharing mistakes. And so we believe it's an opportunity to start sharing our quality lessons learned like we do safety in Toolbox Talks. We think that's a potential opportunity here. And one thing I just want to point out here, I'm sure, again, if I could see your faces, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Procore, safety or construction management software. Where I used to work, they used Procore. I don't know if they are anymore, but Procore was the basis of the quality control management checklist. And because we know software is so expensive, I was getting a lot of heat because of the cost of my safety management program and my safety auditing program, which I loved because I could track closing of safety incidents. I could track closing of job site inspections, and I could also create leading indicators. And I lost the battle, and we had to end up using Procore for our safety, and it can't manage really incident management. When I left, they were still trying to, I think, to figure that out. But the point here is I lost my safety program to Procore, which couldn't at the time compete. And so we all have limited resources. And if the cost of rework is driving our losses, we might lose some of our safety resources to quality control. And so I just want to put that in there so that people are aware of that potential and understand how we can potentially work together so that we have a strong program that manages quality and safety. Brian, back to you.
There we go. Okay, so again, back to the parallels between quality and safety from a process standpoint. And if you go to any of these online construction management, and Procore is one of them, probably the largest, they have a lot of non-leading indicator type claims control, claims defense type processes, okay? We're in safety, we're in injury prevention, we're in loss control. We should be preventing the losses. It's as simple as if you don't have unsafe act, unsafe conditions, you don't have an injury, you don't have a claim, okay? So if you follow that process concept and you look at the parallels between safety and quality, look at the list again. You've seen this a couple of times. What are we missing? The one thing when Bill Drinkford and I put together the quality control program at Hoffman is we had no idea how to do training for the craft employees on a weekly basis, no different than the weekly safety meetings you have right now. I would argue and bet every contractor on this call, and owners if they're on the call too, has a clause in their contract that says the subcontractor or the contractor will do weekly safety meetings of their own or attend the generals, or some verbiage very similar to that. I've yet to identify one contractor in the United States that does that for quality control. Not one. They have it in Ireland on a Microsoft project. I seen it last fall. Okay. They're doing weekly quality control meetings and safety meetings at the same time. Okay. So next slide. So go ahead and click down on that. So if you look at two organizations that I respect a lot. Construction Industry Institute, they did their zero injury task force a number of years ago. The number 2 most important thing to CII was safety orientation and ongoing training. And if you want to see that full report, just go to the CII webpage and type in Zero Accident Task Force, and there's a full article. But the short version of the article is here's the top 5 things that they found out that every contractor must have in their loss prevention, in their injury prevention program. Look at number 2. AIA contract specs came out last September 26th, actually, in 23. In their contract spec, they identified the key components in a construction contractor's quality control program. Number 4 is training and certifications. Now, if you think about this for a second, we sent a lot of project managers, a lot of project superintendents, and even some general foremen, and maybe once in a while a foreman to training for quality control. But I would challenge, is there any one contractor on this group, on this call, that's doing ongoing weekly quality control meetings for their craft that's trade specific? I don't know of one. And if you go back to the basic elements of a safety program, I think that everybody would agree that weekly safety meetings, communicating with the craft, the culture, the benefit, all of it of a weekly safety meeting is one of the most important things of a injury prevention program. And yet we don't do it for quality. It's that simple. And we didn't do it at Hoffman because I had no way, and Bill Drinkward had no way to jump on Google and type in weekly quality control training topics for craft. It does not exist until now. Next slide. Go ahead and hit the. So basically what we're supporting and what we're suggesting that the industry think about, and this is a learning opportunity, is if you believe that weekly safety meetings were an impact or part of a successful safety program, why don't you have it in your quality control program? The costs are already built in. The cost of the craft employees to walk to the safety meeting, attend the safety meeting, then walk back to their work site is already built into the project. It's an additional 5 minutes talking about some quality control topic specific to the craft. Next slide. So this is the wrap up. We're down to 5 minutes, and we'll be done right at 10 or just a little before. So what do you do? What's the people, what's the take home for the group here? One is invest in your people. You've heard that 100 times. I'll go back to a comment years ago when we were doing safety training at Hoffman, and up in Seattle when I was doing the safety training, we actually did them at dinner time, and we bought everybody dinner. And Doug Wynn, which is a great man, was the vice president there, called me up one day and said, "Hey, we got to cut our training because it just costs too much." And I said to Doug, the only thing worse than training somebody and having them leave is not training them and them not leaving. So when you're thinking about your training budget, think about that. Some other things you should do: update your pre-task plan. If you're a general contractor or an owner, require a site-specific quality control plan. We do it for safety all day long. Include quality control in your contractor selection process. And then back to the training. Next slide. So when I say know your losses, it's more than just looking at your loss runs. If you look at your loss runs for worker comp, you're going to see the dollars that were spent. You're not going to see any of the hidden costs. Same thing with quality control. That's why I say use the spreadsheet, because you got to track hours. Know the concerns of others. If you want to talk to your chief financial officer, you need to talk to them in numbers. Go in there with these kind of numbers, and then share your knowledge. Share what you're learning here today. Next slide, Kim. 4 minutes and we're almost done. So, of the people on the call, if you're involved with negotiated work, I'm going to throw something at you that we did at Hoffman very, very well. And we marketed our safety, and we marketed it project specific. As an example, we got a large project at a zoo because we went in there and we said, we'll have no plastics. We'll have no danger tape. We'll have no orange fence. Why? Because plastic kills animals. We'll have no backup alarms. Why? Because the noise scares the rhinoceros and actually takes them out of the breeding cycles. We found out what was important to the owner from a safety prevention, a loss control, injury prevention, or public protection prevention. And we won projects time and time again in the negotiated work process, not because we were low, because we went in and marketed our safety. So your opportunity right now, if you're a general contractor or a large subcontractor doing work, especially in a negotiated world, is tell your client about the cost of rework and what are you doing to prevent it on their project. And just go through the little 4 little sub bullets down there. We're updating our pre-task plans. We're making our subs and ourselves have quality control, a site-wide quality control plan that we're upgrading. And I'll guarantee you, if you're not on this call, you probably don't know one of the opportunities is require weekly craft quality control topics. Next slide, Ken. So that was your marketing opportunity. This is my marketing opportunity. I had this idea when I was at Hoffman is we need to have a database of quality control topics that are by the trade. It didn't exist. So I went out over the last year and a half or so, and I've hired a bunch of superintendents, retired insurance people, retired quality control people, and we've come up with a very large database and process for coming up with, or for having trade-specific quality control topics. So if you think of a piece of paper, and one on the left here is something to do with blockies, is on the front page is a quality control topic specific to that trade. The one on the right is electrical. If you turn it over, there's a weekly safety topic specific to that trade. And there's all kinds of samples on our webpage. Go take a look at it. We're down to 1 minute. There's not much time for questions, but I would encourage you to take a look at the webpage. Go grab some free samples. Go out and talk to your general superintendent, your general foreman, and say, what do you think of this? Go talk to your marketing person, especially if you're a general contractor that does negotiated work or a large subcontractor that does negotiated work. Ask your marketing person. Say they want to set you apart from your competitors. Say this is one way we can set ourselves apart from competitors. We have our craft do this, and we have our subcontractors do this. And yes, right now we're in the marketing part, the rollout part of doing this. In the last month or last 3 or 4 months, I've spoke at 4 different conferences, been published in 4 or 5 different national magazines, did some podcasts. Right now we're in the aha moment with a whole bunch of different owners and large general contractors and construction managers. And I'll end it with this. I was talking to a guy out in New York last week, and he literally was saying, nobody's done this yet. And he could not believe nobody's done that. And I'll leave with this challenge. Go to Google, type in weekly quality control topics for craft. It doesn't come up. There's no database of such. We have it. So we are right at 10 o'clock. Questions? I don't know how you do questions.
Don't worry, Brian. We got time.
Okay, questions? That's next slide is questions.
Can I respond to Joe Vlach, who put something in the chat? He talked about how he found the emphasis on culture transformation with quality and safety is thought-provoking. I just want to share a little story. Had a project where the general superintendent and the concrete superintendent, they were locking horns. They were like, two rams locking horns, and they could not get along, and it was creating a really toxic environment. And the general superintendent was pushing schedule, like we all do, right? And he says, you have to make that concrete pour. You have to make that concrete pour. And the concrete superintendent's like, we are not going to be ready. We are not going to be ready. And the general superintendent's, he was one of those guys who led through fear. He's like, you have to make the pour. And finally, the concrete superintendent's like, fine, I'll pour the deck on the day that you say that we're going to pour the deck. And they missed 50% of the embeds. Think about how that affected schedule, quality, and safety to make the fix, because the general superintendent and the concrete superintendent, to be perfectly honest, could not sit down and have a civil conversation with each other.
So I'm running through some of the chat questions right now. Those forms, if you go to qualitysafetytimes.com and you do the drop down link on the safety one of the drop downs is cost of injuries, and that form's there, you can get it for free. If you go to the quality drop down, one of the drop downs is tracking costs of rework, and that form is there. You can download it for free. Yeah. Okay. So I'll post. Oh, there it is. Okay, Kim, you got the posting. Are there other questions on this that we need to get to?
This is a wonderful presentation. We appreciate it so much. Questions? Let's see here. We see a few different pieces of feedback in the chat room, accolades, and good thumbs up. Yeah, excellent. A lot of people are requesting the slide deck, and we can provide that in PDF. If you reach out to Brian, we can send that to you specifically, and you can receive that. And that has all of the contact information, links, and you can tap into some of these great resources, and also communication with both Brian and Kim. Brian, appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for taking the time today. This is extremely valuable information, and definitely something that needs some light shown on it, because there is a lot left on the table here, obviously. Thank you.
So if there's anybody here, there's quite a few things, kind of get access to the deck. I just gave a version of this presentation last week to a large international contractor on their monthly in-house training session. So if anybody would like me to either meet in Zoom, or I have no problem running up to Seattle and meeting with an owner or a contractor internally of their staff and go with this a little bit more in depth. But I would encourage people to go talk to your general superintendent, your general foremans, and find out what kind of problem this really is. I think you'll be very much surprised on how much this really costs. And I'd also encourage you to talk to your marketing or new business development people, because they're always trying to find out, how can I separate myself from my competitor? And this is a way you can separate yourself from a competitor. Anyhow, glad to help. It's 5 after. My contact information is there. That's all I had.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it so much. This is such a great turnout today. We nearly had 80 people in attendance.